Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic, let's do it. People who have seen something that they can never explain. What was the thing? Part 2. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I was walking on a trail on South Mountain in Phoenix when a guy appeared out of the side of a mountain with a lab coat and a briefcase, just calmly walked towards the parking lot. In my early 20s, I was home alone. I woke up to my cell phone ringing but missed the call. The number I missed the call from was my landline home phone number. I got up and found the cordless phone on the kitchen counter. I looked everywhere, but no one was in the house and the doors were all locked. When I was 4, I got lost in my great-aunt's house. I used the bathroom I didn't normally use, and when I exited, the hallway that led to the rest of her house was a dead end. I wandered around the 2 rooms I could get to and the hallway for what felt like several minutes. Eventually, when I exited one of the rooms, the hallway was back open to the rest of the house. It was over 30 years ago, so while I'm not certain, I can't imagine I didn't shout for help. I have no idea what caused this, whether I imagined it, if it was a dream, a false memory, etc., but I have thought about it a lot throughout the years, and it always felt incredibly real. In my old townhouse, the bedrooms had L-shaped door handles. I lived alone, and it was a 2-story townhouse with the bedrooms upstairs. Had multiple nights where I'd be laying in bed watching YouTube videos on my iPad, when my door handle would twist and the door would slowly open. The first time I thought someone broke in. Each subsequent time I'd go through the townhouse and no one was there. The hallway light, which was also the stair light, had a switch at the bottom of the stairs and the top that controlled the same light. Multiple times while in bed, the light would turn on, so I'd get up, do a search of the entire townhouse, nothing there. Then the TV would turn on in the living room at some point, and I'd wake up and walk downstairs to the TV being on. This went on for months, and I eventually moved. Nothing like this occurs in my current apartment, but could never explain what was happening. So I know some robo-dialers or spam can, make numbers look like numbers you're familiar with, sometimes even your own numbers. So what do you think? Spam caller or break-in? Dad was a pilot. Flying at night one time, he saw a huge light in the sky like a spotlight, but there was no visible ground source for it. Pops and his wingman turned and flew toward it for a while to try and figure it out, but never managed to get visibly closer. It was like flying toward a rainbow or the moon. No, it was not the moon, at least not directly. Then it went away. Looked like it suddenly receded into the distance. He thought it was some sort of weird, exceedingly rare atmospheric phenomenon, not little green men. My mom passed away in February 2021 in Missouri. I live in Florida. I flew up there for the funeral with my husband and daughter, stayed for a couple of days to handle her belongings, and then came home. Life goes on. I grieved. About a month, maybe 2 later, I'm lying in my bed in the morning, but I'm wide awake. My phone rings and I answer it. It says Mom on the caller ID. When I click it on, I can clear as day hear her voice. Well, hi there. Haha, did I wake you up? Now I'm just sitting there, upright on my bed. All I can think to say is, Mom? And as soon as I said that, the phone clicked a couple of times and then went dead. It did show on the caller history that her phone had called mine. Either her boyfriend or her brother kept her phone for whatever reasons, but they wouldn't have done a prank like that. I did try to call the phone back, but it went straight to her voicemail. I used to work as trauma cleanup, and out of all the screwed up things I saw, there was one that bothered my coworker and I at the time that makes myself scratch my head still. This goes into a little bit of detail, recalling suicide, so reader discretion is advised. We got a call one afternoon. You usually get a small accompanying description from a relative, a friend, a neighbor, just someone with secondary relations to who passed away rather than primary, especially in gruesome or otherwise sudden passings. So it was the neighbors that called on this one. Person who passed was a man verging into his 40s, an ex-veteran, leaving behind his wife and younger than a teenage son. At least that's what we gathered from the photos or portraits that were in the contaminated area. Story was that he had taken his wife and son to the movies following a wonderful dinner they had. Arrived home, he asked his wife to get his son to bed, and in that time took his shotgun and did himself in the entry from his garage to his kitchen. No clue why anyone, would do anything like that, even having seen a lot and having some trauma of my own that I carry. And while I know everyone's pain and experiences are different, I couldn't fathom letting my partner go read my kid a story or making sure he brushes his teeth or whatever and blowing my brains out in that same period of time in the same house, directly downstairs from them. Anyway, not the point, unfortunately. The point is that they needed help as the wife was inconsolable. Police had already arrived and did their investigation, and the neighbors were given the green from the wife to call whomever to handle it because obviously they couldn't and shouldn't be in the home after that until things got cleaned up and looking better, and until they've had time to go through their own grieving and such. So, we get there, and the contaminated area is like I described, but rather than like an entry, it's like a pantry. You have a garage with a door that leads through that door into the pantry that has two doors that leads from the second door into the house. And word is, and from the most affected area that we could see, he was in the pantry when it happened. Why this is all strange and makes me guess at a lot of what could have instead transpired there is because there's a splash, a term that we'd use to signify an area where, through kinetic force, a fair amount of the contamination can be on the walls and ceiling, in the garage, pantry, and house interior. Having splash on multiple surfaces is fair and is seen a lot, but having it across 3 rooms, all separated by doors, with it also being on both sides of the doors, and a good amount of contaminants in the home and 3 feet around a corner. It's made me question what went on there, and if it really was a man dealing with his trauma by ending it, or something else altogether. Never spoke to the wife, or went looking for an official police statement. It's better for your mental health if you try and keep yourself as separated as possible from the situation. But my coworker and I would talk about previous jobs sometimes by nicknames. We'd give them and we'd call that one under the name Houdini. I just don't know how, even with the spread buckshot puts out, you could get yourself across that many rooms and surfaces with one shot. It was either magic or the most terrible trick someone has ever pulled. I was in Ghana, West Africa, and 2 people were arguing about a family land or something like that. One of them removed his pants, sat down on his bare ass and said, "If I'm lying, may I be struck by lightning?" And he was immediately struck by lightning. We all started running. I guess he was lying. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever witnessed. When I came back home, I researched into African occult and beliefs, but I still don't know or understand what that was. Shit still gives me nightmares. Well, either that guy knew what he was doing, or that guy had no idea what he was doing. But either way, it looks like it worked out or didn't work out for him. When I was about 16, I was at a sleepover LAN party with some friends from my school. They were more of the sporty types. Sort of friends, but more so acquaintances. One of them wanted to go to the store, and I went with them. It was night, probably 9 or 10 p.m. This was in a very small town in New England, by the way. Anyway, we're driving, and this monkey cat-looking creature just hops out of the woods and lands right in front of the car. We just stopped and froze. Then it hopped into the other side, and this was 2 total hops. Thing went far. We spent the rest of the night trying to figure out what animal that was. Anyone know? I was thinking about that the other day, but I never really talked to the kid in the first place and haven't seen him since high school. This incident happened to me when I was 10 years old. My friend and I were cycling. It was around 7:15, and it had gotten dark. There was a road where we usually cycled, but it was a dead end. There were bushes on one side and a wall with barbed wires. At the end of the road, there was a residential complex on the right side, and a small route led to the farms. The middle part of the road was all quiet and dark. My friend and I were just chatting and cycling when I heard a sound. I don't remember it well, but it seemed like a little girl weeping. Just as I was about to ask my friend, "Hey, did you hear that?" he shouted, "Run! Ah!" When we reached the other side of the road, where the residential complex was, I asked him, "What the heck, bro? What happened?" He was shivering in fear and said he saw a woman in the bushes with big white eyes. When some people appeared on the road, we quickly left. We were shivering with fear, and to this day, we don't know how to explain it. I was in my 6th grade and going through the stored stuff, looking for old books, letters, scrapbooks, in the dilapidated part of my ancestral home. I swear I could see my great-grandfather's brother, whom I had seen only in photos and had died very young, from outside the window, yelling at me to get out. I got scared, ran out, and the whole roof came crashing down. As a kid on rainy days, I would grab my umbrella and jacket and play around in the rain, collecting raindrops. When I was about 11, I was playing outside in my front yard one day. I decided to go into the sidewalk to catch a bit more rain. I then looked into the street. It was a foggy, rainy day, but I could have sworn I saw someone who looked exactly like me. Me being a kid, I panicked, ran inside for the rest of the rain, but I was still an idiot, so I never really told anyone, because I thought they wouldn't believe me. A few years ago, I was staying in Alabama with a friend. One day I was driving down a steep road in the rain and fog. It wasn't quite night yet, but it was getting dark. Within the blink of an eye, there was a little girl on the side of the road walking toward my car, and I thought I was about to hit her head on, and she disappeared. I panicked and turned around, and there was no one. I'll never forget it because my brain just can't make sense of it. Well, when you start a story like you were staying with a friend in Alabama, that story could go a lot of directions, so this was pretty vanilla compared to what I was thinking. When I was 6, 20 years ago, my parents took me on a fishing trip with some family friends. There was a huge lake with fishing lodges that you can rent for the day, and you can catch and cook your fish there. Around 7 p.m., it was turning dark. Everyone was gathering for dinner as I was standing at the edge of the lodge, looking down at the lakeshore when I spotted a strange creature walking on the shore towards the water on all fours. It looked nothing like anything I'd ever seen before that up and until now. It was about the size of a large German shepherd, had a long tail that was dragging along on the sand, which at first made me think of a giant platypus, obviously not a native species where I'm from, Vietnam. Its body was a bit flat, but not as flat as a turtle, and it walked like a mammal, not waddling like a turtle on land. On its back was a dorsal fin, and as it entered the water, the fin protruded the surface and steered like you'd normally see shark fins in the movies until it disappeared completely into the dark waters. After all these years, I still don't know what it was, even though I've been a huge animal nerd since I was 4. I was the only one who saw it because everyone was preparing dinner. No one believed me either. The creature was 20 to 30 meters away from me, and it seemed unbothered by the presence of humans on a weekend trip. My ex-boyfriend is a diagnosed schizophrenic, and he often told me about the things, people he saw and heard. One summer, on several late nights, he kept seeing a big dark creature in the middle of the road on the way to drop me off home. He'd stop the car in a panic and wake me up. I'd always fall asleep on the way home and tried to get me to see the creature. I never saw anything, so I told him it was probably his schizophrenia. Well, on one night I stayed awake on the drive home, and I saw the damn creature in the road. It had the body of a huge bear, long horse-like legs. It didn't seem to have a neck. It was blacker than night, and had a glowing white Cheshire grin. I said, "What the is that?" And my boyfriend said, "See, I've been trying to tell you." We watched it cross the road and disappear into thin air. That was the last time he and I ever saw the thing. This was about 10 years ago. I once saw a rock jump. I was taking bins out from my job at a restaurant to the dumpster behind the place, and from the effing sky falls this rock. It came from the direction of a high 3-story roof of the building across the road, so I guess it could have somehow come off there, but this thing had some serious momentum. Anyway, it hits the ground and bounces a few times like rocks do. It's night, and I can't really see, but there's enough streetlights, and I'm like, what the F? There's no one on the roof. Anyway, the rock bounces a few times, and once it's lost its momentum, it stops. Then it hops like a frog. 3 effing times. It had completely stopped, like a complete standstill. But then it just all of a sudden bounced. Rinse and repeat 3 times. I went over to inspect, and yes, it was a seemingly normal rock. Shit was weird.